We're going to tie a lot of things together as we welcome our next guest into the studio. One, Tony Khan, he of AEW Jaguars and Fulham Acclaim. Tony, we have a lovely device here at 1010XL called the text line, designed by Lifetime Enclosures. And so our listeners, our nooners as we call them, they can sound off. And so this one's courtesy of 4634. He wants to know if you can do analytics on my chances from yesterday to have finished the Taco Bell challenge with 4,000 calories.
Seems pretty unlikely. I would say less than 25%.
There we go. There's actually the numbers we needed. We should have had that yesterday.
Yeah, but I'm not an analytics guy, and I could have told you that.
Yeah. We all thought the chances were slim. All right, now we've got Tony for about, say, 10, 15 minutes. We want to say hello, welcome Tony Khan in onto 1010XL airwaves. If you do have a question, you can hit the text line at 641-1010 and throw them at him. We got AEW to talk about. We're going to talk Jaguar football as well. But you guys have been on the road, Tony, and look, we loved it when Daly's Place was basically the epicenter of AEW wrestling because there was just so many great things that came out of it, especially during the pandemic. But as you and I were just talking, all of us were just talking a few minutes ago, hitting the road's pretty cool for your AEW to just kind of set their footprint across America.
It's amazing. We did over a year of consecutive shows in Daly's Place. We were on every single Wednesday through the pandemic, and we really came out of the pandemic through the lockdown stronger than we went in. You know, when NFL season started in 2020, there were only two teams that had fans in the stands week one. It was the Chiefs and the Jaguars, and we did it safely. We had zero known COVID transmissions through playing a season of football with fans, which a lot of places all over the country didn't have. Yeah. We were also the only place in the entire continent with live wrestling here in Jacksonville.
That's worth a round of applause there, JJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was really cool, and the fans around here supported it. And again, we did it with zero known COVID transmissions, with fans in the stands. Daly's Place, my idea was that it would be like a drive-in movie theater when drive-in movie theaters made a comeback, that we could do it in Daly's Place. Put, each seating section is a family, group of friends, sit out there, and you're outdoors. It's very safe, and we, actually came out of it better than we went in. And it's amazing because after a year of consecutive shows in Daly's Place, we've been on tour for a little over a year now, and we've gone all over the country since then. We've been to Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York City. We've been to the Forum in LA, the United Center in Chicago, Little Caesars in Detroit, and almost everywhere in between. And now it's really cool to be back in Jacksonville. We did Dynamite earlier this year on a Wednesday on TBS, as we do every Wednesday on TBS, and that was back in March. And now we're coming back for our first ever live Friday Night Rampage on TNT. Rampage is a second show that we started right after we left Jacksonville, went back on the road, and it's cool to bring it here. And you mentioned Acclaim earlier. One of our top teams is known as the Acclaimed. They're the World Tag Team Champions. They were really born as a team in Jacksonville, in Daly's Place. They had never teamed before, and I talked to them in my office in Daly's Place about, hey, what if you guys form a team called the Acclaimed? I have some ideas. I had seen Max Caster rap on Twitter, but I'd never seen him do it as an entrance. He'd never done it as his entrance, and now it's one of the most iconic entrances in all of pro wrestling. And they are hugely popular. They've been cheered in Chicago and New York City so loudly that it's gone viral all over the world. And Anthony is one of the most charismatic people in the world. He's a former college baseball player, an amazing athlete. And the two of them together have just become a great pair. Now they're the champions of the world, and they're going to be defending the titles. But they also have this thing they do that's become really popular. If you may have even seen it, Mia, I think you're a wrestling peripheral person.
Peripheral, the right terminology right there.
You may be familiar with the scissoring that they do. The scissoring is very popular. Well, the scissoring, another wrestler, a wrestling lawyer specifically, has trademarked the scissoring out from under them. And it's going to be titles versus trademarks tomorrow night in Daly's Place. It'll be, there's still some tickets available, but you can also see it live on TNT if you can't make it downtown to Daly's Place. But the whole world will be watching titles versus trademarks. We have some other things up our sleeve for the show. It's going to be a great time. And it's just great to be back in Jacksonville earlier in the week. Get ready for a Jags home game. It's going to be fun.
And what's incredible for me, Tony, is having been there when you kicked this entire AEW operation off, that January 2019 press conference. Everyone's looking around like, what is this? Like, what exactly is AEW? And now here we are almost 4 years later. Through a global pandemic, you have established yourself as a leader, not only in the wrestling niche space, but in programming across television. When you look back on everything that's happened in 4 years, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of what we did here in Jacksonville to keep the company going, and it was through the local community's support, because it's very fitting that AEW launched in Jacksonville, literally in the parking lot outside of the Jags Stadium, with over 1,000 fans who wanted to hear about this new wrestling league, what it was going to be. And then the big surprise was Chris Jericho was there, and nobody expected that. Well, here we are in 2022, years later. We made it through with over a year of shows in Daly's Place. And then, like I said, we've toured the entire country, been in some of the biggest, most prestigious sporting arenas and venues in the world. And now we're back in Jacksonville tomorrow night for Friday Night Rampage on TNT. We do this every Wednesday on TBS, every Friday on TNT. And if we hadn't had the support of the community here and the support of the local government to make it possible, I don't think it would have been really, viable for AEW to be where we are now as one of the top shows on TV every week, and really building this company that started out of Jacksonville. I'm really proud of it. And it's fitting. Chris Jericho kicked off that big press conference. Now he's one of the top stars in AEW. He actually came out and he's lost over 30 pounds, about 31 pounds this year.
Wow.
And he's in the best shape he's been in, certainly the whole time he's been in AEW. And he's peak Chris Jericho right now. I'm a huge wrestling historian, and Chris has had over 30 years in the wrestling business. He's wrestled over 2,500, actually over 2,700 matches. And this year in 2022 has been one of the best years of his incredible career. So that's pretty amazing. And that's one of the cool stories in AEW. And I just think what we did here in Jacksonville and keeping the company going, it's the best thing we've done.
All right, that's AEW tonight. Tickets still on sale. So when I hear you talk about this, Tony, you're very invested in AEW. And then I hear you talk about the Jags, and you're very big with the undrafted free agents. You're very invested in that, I can tell.
Yep.
So this is the question. Fans out there, they live and die with every play, Tony, much less every game. How does it affect you guys at a granular level when the Jags lose? How upset are you? How devastated are you?
It's really hard. I mean, sitting next to Trent the last couple of years, I think what's been a lot better for us is that every time we come out, I really feel like we're so much more competitive. And I think Trent and I, sitting there together, watching every game for years, I think we've found really, it's pretty amazing how far we've come. And this year, I think there's been games that we have not won that we could have won. And really now, I think, we're really close. And we've made huge progress year over year. And I think we can celebrate that, but there's just so much work to do every week. And it's great to be able to come back here after being on the road, come back and have a big home game and be able to go out and get a chance to do it again this week. It's like Doug said to everybody last week, he couldn't wait for this Sunday. He wished it was this Sunday, last Sunday, coming out of the game, because I think everybody, wanted a chance to go out there and win. And a lot of the young players have really taken a leap. I think rookies have come in and made good contributions, and we've had players that have been here for a year or two that are young players that have really taken that leap. Like you said, I love working with undrafted free agency, and there's some players on the team that I signed or, oversaw the signing of in undrafted free agency, and people I literally called up and talked into joining the team. So I really, I love that part of it. But to me, what is really exciting is what Doug has brought to the team, the staff he's brought, so many really positive people that have come in, and they haven't been here very long, but they've gotten a lot of great work done in a short amount of time. Mike Caldwell is tremendous, and we've had some really great people here over the years working on defense, and Mike Caldwell is certainly there with the top of them, and it's really awesome what's happening here in Jacksonville right now.
Now, Tony, we understand the process that you have to go through to bring guys into the Jaguar team, the combine, free agency, workouts, and all that kind of stuff. What is the process at AEW? What is that process? I mean, is there a farm league that you have to go and look at, or do you go to different locations to determine what athletes or what wrestlers that you need with AEW?
Well, it's funny you ask. There's wrestling all over the world. Mm-hmm. There's great wrestlers here in America. There are independent leagues, but there's also great Lucha Libre in Mexico, where we brought in wrestlers from there. There's great wrestling in Japan, and we have a partnership with the company New Japan Pro Wrestling. that also has hundreds of thousands of fans and has fans here in America that follow New Japan. I have been a fan myself of New Japan for 30 years since I was a kid, and they do great stuff, and it's now amazing to be a partner with them. There's free agents out of WWE that we've signed, and that's now an active competitive market, I think, in free agency, which is exciting for the fans, and it's good for the wrestlers. And also, we do develop some talent of our own, but it's really a lot of scouting. It's a very different scouting process than scouting for football, but I do really enjoy it, and people are people, so there's still that human side of it that I do enjoy.
And we do have one off the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosure. This one courtesy of Justin. He wants to know, Tony, have you reached out to the BOAT, Blake Bortles, about maybe he can be one of your next discoveries in scouting potential talent for AEW?
You know, I had never thought about the BOAT making a wrestling appearance, but it's a good idea. He would probably
6'5", 230 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's one of the all-time leaders in yards per carry for the quarterback position. One of the all-time leaders in yards per carry for anybody. Yeah. So no, absolutely, he could get out there and truck some people. The BOAT, man, that's a great idea.
Tony, I got a question for one of the fans that says Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson. What have they brought to AEW?
They've brought so much. They're two of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. I think if you're a big fan of wrestling, you're very familiar with Chris Jericho, Lionheart. What's cool is Chris got so jacked and in such good shape this year, he brought Lionheart back, which is his wrestling persona of over 30 years ago. And now Bryan Danielson is coming to AEW, the American Dragon. Bryan Danielson, one of the most recognizable pro wrestlers on the planet. The two of them, they bring leadership backstage in the locker room, really, whether you're a rule breaker in Chris Jericho's locker room or a fan favorite in Bryan Danielson's locker room, these are really the leaders. These are two of the best, but also they both are brilliant. I think not only are they really great in the ring and great athletes, but they've been able to stay relevant, stay on top, and be great champions in wrestling for multiple decades because both of them have great minds for wrestling.
Couple more questions for Tony Khan. I'm looking at Paul White, one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen when he came in studio with us. Just a massive human being, and you lassoed him and brought him over to AEW. Talk about your dad for a second to the fans out there. What is going through Shad's mind in terms of what has happened this year so far? Got off to a nice start. Now trying to get back to 500 football, just at least some of the conversations you've had with your dad.
Well, my dad and I talk every day, and a lot of it is about the Jaguars, and we spend a ton of time talking about, I think, where we can improve, the progress we can make, have made, and certainly year over year, I feel like to anybody who watches the games, follows the team, the progress is undeniable. And it's about, now taking the next step and converting a lot of these great performances and all this hard work into winning games on a consistent basis. And I really believe we have the capability to do it. I really believe Doug and the players we have and that there's more talent than there's been in a long time in Jacksonville.
True.
And it's down to Doug and Trent and the great work everybody's doing around the office. And I really love working with both of them. And I think everyone feels that way. It's really great working with Doug and Trent. And I think my dad worked really hard. It was a long process to find the right coach, but Doug was the first person we talked to. And then he went out, and told Doug, I'm going to talk to a lot of people, but we're going to talk to you. And he went around and conducted, I think, a really thorough search, probably the most thorough coaching search in the NFL, and found Doug was the best coach out there, which I think we had a pretty good first interview, and I think the second one came away feeling even better. And it was really been very, I think, gratifying to Dad to see that something he put so much time into, finding the right coach, and also standing by Trent, who's somebody that both of us really believe in. And even if a lot of people didn't, we did, and we trust Trent and believe in Trent. And I think Trent's doing a great job, and he's been through a lot and taken a lot of stick from a lot of people, but I think he deserves credit for working hard and keeping his head down.
You mentioned, Tony, just how proud you are of AEW being invested in Jacksonville, how much you care about this community. I know our good mutual friend John Alba let me know about the donation that you made to the family of Brian Muster earlier this week. And so we obviously really appreciate, your support for someone who passed away unexpectedly as part of the AEW staff.
It's terrible.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. But we obviously, appreciate all the support you've had for the local Jacksonville community and the AEW community. And so I'm just curious, in terms of longevity in Jacksonville for both AEW and the Jaguars, for you personally, what is the next step? How involved are you in making sure that both those entities, both in stadium renovations, the continued operation at Daly's Place, how involved are you on that front?
Stadium and arena operation, I do a bit more on the AEW side, probably a lot more, it's fair to say, on the AEW side. I'm not as active on that part of the Jaguars. That's completely Mark Lamping's bag, and Mark is the best at it. And I've recently, at the NFL level, gotten more involved in the event planning. I'm on the NFL Major Events and Fan Engagement Committee, which has been an awesome experience, and that's been since AEW launched and it became pretty successful that I got more involved and asked to work more on the NFL committees, which I think is great for the Jaguars and the local community here. And for me, Daly's Place was an amazing home to us. On the production, I'm very involved in the overseeing the creative and the touring for AEW. So, but for me, the focus for whether it's AEW or the Jaguars or Fulham is the product that the athletes are producing. So, I work with Trent and Doug closely, and I'm working on football strategy, analytics, things we can do to gain an advantage in NFL. And then I'm the general manager and sporting director of football at Fulham. We have a big match today against Aston Villa that I'm really excited about. And so far off to a great start, I believe. And I have to give so much credit there to our great coach, Marco Silva, who has come in and done an amazing job. And it's really fun working with him side by side on Zoom a lot. And I think we've taken big steps and big strides, largely thanks to Marco and the hard work of our staff and our great players and the support of our great fans. And then AEW, it's really something that we've started from the ground up. There are wrestlers that have been involved from the very beginning that I'm very grateful to, and there have been people that have come in along the way that have helped us take it to the next level. But without the local support we got here in Jacksonville and the TV support of all these great fans all over the world that stayed with AEW through the lockdown, when we weren't on tour in the biggest arenas, we did it here in Jacksonville in our amphitheater, and we kept it going. And we're on in 130 countries around the world, and they were watching Jacksonville every Wednesday. Yeah. So it's cool to be back for Friday Night Rampage.
Well, AEWtix.com, you can go there. As Tony said, there's a few left for Friday night. You've got tickets on 1010XL if you keep listening with a chance to win. But listen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Great visit. We hope to have you back in. Tony Khan, part of AEW, the Jaguars right here in Duval. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.